Take a breath. Feel the air as it enters, a cool whisper against the senses. Feel it fill your lungs, a gentle expansion, a quiet tide rising within you. And now, feel it leave, a slow, warm release, a letting go. This rhythm, this simple, unassuming pulse of life, is perhaps the most fundamental truth you know. In and out, rising and falling. It is the metronome of your existence, the background hum against which the music of your days is played. But have you ever truly asked yourself who is doing the breathing? Is it you? The self you call by your name? The consciousness that is listening to these words right now? Or is it something else? Something older? There is an echo of another life inside of you. A story written in a language that predates words. A history that unfolds in the silent, microscopic theaters of your own body. It is the story of a guest who arrived a very, very long time ago and never left. A stowaway who became the engine. An outsider who became the very definition of your inner world. We are going on a journey, you and I, not to a distant star or an ancient ruin, but inward, deeper than bone, deeper than blood. We are traveling into the quiet, humming cities that you call yourselves. And in each one of these cities, in their thousands of trillions, we're going to find the power plants, the tiny, ceaseless furnaces that burn to keep you warm, to keep you thinking, to keep you dreaming. We're going to meet your mitochondria. And in meeting them, you may begin to wonder if the self you thought you knew, this singular, unified I, is an illusion. A beautiful, convenient story we tell ourselves to make sense of the overwhelming truth. The truth is, you are not alone in your own body. You have never been. You are a crowd, a multitude, a walking, breathing ecosystem. And the story of how that came to be is the story of everything. The world your senses build for you is one of solids and certainties. You touch a table, it is firm. You look at your hand, it is yours. You feel a thought arise, it belongs to you. This is the great lie of perception. A necessary fiction that allows you to navigate the world without being paralyzed by the staggering complexity of what you truly are. The lie is that you are a monolith, a single entity governed by a single command center, your brain, and a single blueprint, your DNA, a self-contained kingdom, secure within the borders of your skin. But the first layer of truth dissolves this border. Within you, right now, live beings, countless separate beings, numbering not in the millions, not in the billions, but in the quadrillions. There are more of them inside of you than there are stars in our galaxy. By sheer number, they are the dominant life form of the entity you call yourself. These are your mitochondria, and they're not simply parts of you, not like a lung or a liver. They're different. They carry their own history. They hold their own memories. And most unsettling of all, they have their own DNA, a completely separate genetic code from the one nestled in the nucleus of your cells. A scripture that tells a very different origin story. The DNA in your nucleus, the DNA you think of as yours, is a tapestry woven from your human parents, a story of your recent ancestry. But the DNA inside your mitochondria tells a tale that stretches back billions of years, to a time when the Earth was a different planet, when the air itself was poison. It is a story told only through the maternal line, an unbroken thread passed from mother to child, from egg cell to embryo, stretching back into the mist of deep time to a single, ancient mother. Not a human mother, not an animal mother, but a cellular one. This changes the question. It is no longer what am I, but what are we? Where do you end, and where do they begin? Is there a line at all? Or are you a conversation? A pact made so long ago that the signatories have forgotten they were ever separate. A treaty written into the very fabric of life itself. To understand this pact, we must travel back. Not just a few generations, but an eon. We must cast our minds into a primordial ocean under an alien sky. The year is not a number we can comprehend. Let's say it was 2 billion years ago. The world belonged to the small. Life was a single-celled affair, a quiet, microscopic war and collaboration playing out in the vast sterile seas. Our own ancestor was a simple cell, a primitive organism floating in a world it could not yet conquer. And at the same time, there was another, a different kind of being, a bacterium, a tiny, free-swimming creature with a remarkable talent. It had learned to do something magical. It had learned to breathe fire. Not real fire, but a chemical fire. It had learned to take a dangerous, volatile gas that was beginning to fill the oceans and the atmosphere, a gas called oxygen, and tame it. It could take this poison, this reactive, destructive element, and use it to unleash a torrent of energy. This was a superpower in a world teetering on the edge of a great transformation. For most of a century, the story of life's evolution was told as a tree, a grand, branching structure where lineages split and diverged, growing ever more distinct. It was a story of separation, of competition, of singular lines marching through time. This was the tidy, established narrative. But some saw a different pattern. They saw not just a tree, but a web, a tapestry, a story not of divergence, but of convergence, a story of fusion. One of these visionaries was a scientist named Lynn Margulis. In the mid-20th century, she looked at the neat diagrams in textbooks and saw something missing. She looked deep into the cell at the mitochondrion, and she did not see a subservient organelle. She saw the ghost of a bacterium. She saw the evidence. Mitochondria were the size and shape of bacteria. They divided and reproduced on their own schedule, independent of the cell's own division. They had not one, but two membranes, as if one had been swallowed and wrapped in the membrane of its captor. And the most damning clue, their own DNA, circular and simple, just like a bacterium's. The idea she proposed was radical, an affront to the orderly story of evolution. It was called endosymbiosis. The story goes like this. One day, our ancient, single-celled ancestor did something fateful. It engulfed one of these oxygen-breathing bacteria. Perhaps it was an act of predation, an attempt to eat a smaller life form. But something remarkable happened. Digestion failed. The bacterium was not destroyed. It remained alive and intact, floating in the cytoplasm of its larger host. And here, in the quiet darkness of this inner world, a deal was struck. A silent, biochemical negotiation that would change the destiny of our planet. The host cell, our ancestor, was vulnerable. It was inefficient. It lived a life of low energy, fermenting scraps for a meager existence. And the world was changing. Oxygen, the waste product of photosynthetic life, was becoming abundant, and for our ancestor, it was toxic. The bacterium, the new guest, was in danger. It was small, exposed, but it held the secret of fire. It could take that very oxygen that threatened the host and turn it into a wealth of energy, far more than the host could ever dream of producing on its own. The pact was simple. The host would provide shelter, a safe harbor from the dangers of the primordial sea. It would provide raw materials, simple sugars it had scavenged. In return, the guest, the bacterium, would pay rent. It would pay a tax in the form of pure, life-giving energy. This was the initial paradox, the core problem that made the theory so hard to accept. Evolution was thought to be a story of relentless competition. Eat or be eaten. This was a story of cooperation, of union. The idea that two separate life forms, a predator and its prey, could merge and become a single, more powerful entity was a new and profound chapter in the story of life. It suggested that the self was not sacred, that life could build itself not just by branching out, but by folding in, by incorporating the other, by making we out of I and you. This one event, this ancient ingestion, did not just happen once. It was the spark. The cell with its new internal engine was a revolution. It had a supply of energy so vast, it was like discovering nuclear power in the Stone Age. With this energy, it could grow larger. It could become more complex. It could build new things, create new functions. It could become you. Every complex cell on Earth, in every plant, every fungus, every animal, every human, is a direct descendant of this singular, ancient merger. You're the legacy of that pact. The warmth you feel in your skin is the faint, distant heat of that bacterium's chemical fire, still burning after 2 billion years. So let us look closer at this guest, this ancestor. Let us map the terrain of this inner world. If you could shrink down, past the scale of sight, into a single one of your cells, you would find hundreds, sometimes thousands of them. They are oval-shaped, like tiny grains of rice, constantly in motion, fusing with one another, breaking apart, crawling along the cell's skeletal highways. They have a geography, a strange and specific architecture. An outer membrane, smooth and permeable. This is the skin of the captor, the original prison wall that became a protective border. It is the face the mitochondrion shows to the cell, the interface between two worlds. But pass through that, and you arrive at the inner membrane. This is the true skin of the ancient bacterium. And it is not smooth. It is folded, deeply, intricately folded into countless crests and valleys, a vast, undulating landscape. These folds are called cristae, and their purpose is to dramatically increase the surface area. Because it is here, on the surface of this inner membrane, that the magic happens. It is here that the fire is tamed. This is the factory floor, and the machinery on this floor is a series of protein complexes, 5 of them, embedded in the membrane like great, silent engines. Together, they form a production line of impossible elegance and efficiency. This is the electron transport chain. Imagine a waterfall, but instead of water, it is a cascade of pure energy in the form of tiny, energetic particles, electrons. The food you eat, the glucose from a piece of fruit, the fatty acids from a nut, is broken down. The process harvests high-energy electrons from these molecules. These electrons are the currency, the raw fuel delivered to the mitochondrial factory. They are handed off to the first complex in the chain, and they begin to fall. Not a physical fall, but a fall in energy. The electron is passed from the first complex to the second, like a bucket in a fire brigade. With each handoff, it loses a little of its energy. And that lost energy is not wasted. It is used for a very specific purpose. It is used to do work. With each step of the electron's descent, the protein complexes use its energy to act as pumps. They grab protons, another subatomic particle, from the very center of the mitochondrion, the matrix, and pump them across the inner membrane into the narrow space between the two membranes. So as the electrons cascade down their energetic waterfall, a new gradient is being built. Protons are being forced into that inner membrane space, more and more of them, until they're crowded together, pushing against each other, desperate to flow back to where they came from. You have seen this before. It is a dam, a vast reservoir of potential energy, held back by the thin wall of the inner membrane. A separation of charge, a tension, a powerful electrical and chemical gradient. The cell has taken the chaotic energy of electrons and transformed it into the stored, orderly potential of this proton reservoir. And what good is a dam without a turbine? At the very end of this production line sits the 5th complex, a molecular machine of breathtaking beauty. Its name is ADP synthase, and it is, in the most literal sense, a rotary engine, a water wheel. The protons, seeking to relieve the pressure, can find only one way back across the membrane, through a narrow channel in the heart of ADP synthase. And as they flow through, one by one, driven by the immense pressure of the gradient, they turn the wheel. The top part of the machine, embedded in the membrane, spins. It rotates at incredible speed, thousands of revolutions per minute. This spinning motion is transmitted down a stalk to the bottom part of the machine, which juts into the mitochondrial matrix. And this lower part is a chemical factory. As it is turned by the proton flow, it grabs onto other molecules, a molecule called ADP and a phosphate group, and it mechanically forces them together. It forges them into a new molecule, a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, ADP. This is it. This is the universal currency of life. ADP is the tiny, rechargeable battery that powers almost everything your body does. The energy is not in the molecule itself. but in the fragile bond holding that third phosphate group. When that bond is broken, it releases a perfect, usable packet of energy right where is needed. Energy to contract a muscle. Energy to fire a neuron. Energy to build a new protein. Energy to copy your DNA. Every thought you have, every beat of your heart, every word you speak is paid for with ADP, freshly minted in the spinning turbines of your mitochondria. And we're the electron that started it all. After its long journey down the chain, it has lost most of its energy. It is now a spent force. It must be disposed of, or it will clog the system. This is where the poison comes in. This is the role of oxygen, the very air you are breathing. Oxygen is the final electron acceptor. It is waiting at the very bottom of the waterfall, the most electronegative element, the ultimate sink for spent electrons. It greedily accepts the tired electron, combines with a couple of protons, and forms a simple, stable, harmless molecule. Water. Agal. The breath you inhale delivers the oxygen that cleans up the assembly line. The water that makes up so much of your body is, in part, the exhaust fume of your inner engines. In and out. Fuel in, energy out. Oxygen in, water out. A perfect, contained, continuous fire. The evidence for this ancient story, this separate existence, is not just in the logic of its machinery. It is written in you. The fingerprints, as we said, are in their DNA. Mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA, is a marvel. It is a tiny, circular chromosome containing just a handful of genes, only 37 in humans. These genes are essential. 13 of them provide the blueprints for the core components of that electron transport chain, the engines of the waterfall. The rest build the machinery needed to read and interpret those blueprints. It is a stripped-down, minimalist genome. Over 2 billion years of living inside another cell, the mitochondrion has outsourced most of its original functions. It has transferred thousands of its ancestral genes to the host cell's nucleus. It relies on the main cell for most of its building blocks, its proteins, its maintenance. It has become a specialist, but it has held on to the most important things, the keys to the power grid. It has kept control of its own fire. And this tiny circle of DNA has a unique inheritance. When a sperm fertilizes an egg, it is mostly a delivery vehicle for nuclear DNA. Its own mitochondria, located in its tail to power its frantic journey, are typically destroyed upon entry. The resulting embryo inherits all of its mitochondria, and therefore all of its mtDNA, from the egg cell alone. From a mother. Your mitochondrial DNA is a direct, undiluted link to your mother, and her mother, and her mother's mother, a genetic heirloom passed down an unbroken female line that stretches back through the entirety of human history, through the dawn of our species and far, far beyond. It is a thread that connects you to a hypothetical mitochondrial Eve, a woman who lived in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago, the most recent common matrilineal ancestor of every human alive today. And even she was just a link in the chain, a carrier of the flame that was first lit in that primordial ocean. Your mitochondria remember the journey, even if you do not. Their separate genome is the living proof, the shadow on the wall that tells of a separate existence. They're the storytellers of your deepest past. But they do not just tell the story of the past. They're not just passive engines providing power for a life directed by another. This is where the story takes another unsettling turn. The mitochondria are not just givers of life. They are also the arbiters of death. Within your body, a quiet, continuous process is underway. Cells become damaged. They become infected. They reach the end of their useful life. For the good of the whole organism, these cells must be removed cleanly and quietly, without causing inflammation or scarring. This process is called apoptosis, programmed cell death. It is not a messy, violent death, but a controlled, orderly suicide. The cell dismantles itself from within, packaging its contents in neat little bundles to be cleaned up by the immune system. It is the fall of a leaf in autumn, a necessary and beautiful part of the life cycle. For decades, it was assumed this profound decision, the decision for a cell to end its own existence, was made by the nucleus, that the command came from the brain of the cell, from your own DNA. But it is not. The decision to live or to die is held in the hands of your mitochondria. They are the ultimate sensors of the cell's health. They are constantly monitoring their environment. They feel the stress. They register the damage from toxins, from radiation, from starvation. They sense the presence of viral invaders. Their own performance, the efficiency of their energy production, is a direct measure of the cell's vitality. When the damage becomes too great, when the stress signals reach a critical threshold, the mitochondria make a choice. This is the spooky phenomenon, the twist that violates the classical laws of cellular command. It is not the nucleus that gives the order. It is the ancient guest. A signal is given. The pores on the mitochondrial outer membrane, which are normally tightly controlled, suddenly open wide. And a protein, a molecule called cytochrome C, leaks out. This is the same cytochrome C that acts as one of the electron carriers in the energy waterfall. Its day job is to give life. But when it escapes its home, when it floods into the main body of the cell, it has a new purpose. It becomes a messenger of death. Its presence in the cytoplasm triggers a cascade of enzymes called caspases. These are the cell's executioners. The caspases activate, and they begin to systematically dismantle the cell. They chop up the proteins. They shred the DNA in the nucleus. They dissolve the cellular skeleton. The cell quietly, neatly dies. Think of what this means. The power over life and death, at the most fundamental cellular level, does not reside with you, with your primary genetic blueprint. It resides with them, with the descendants of an organism that joined your lineage by accident 2 billion years ago. They are a government in exile, living within the host, yet retaining the ultimate authority. They have their finger on the self-destruct button, and their loyalty is not to the individual cell. Their loyalty is to the integrity of the whole system and to the preservation of their own ancient lineage. They will sacrifice a single cell, a single city to save the nation. This completely reframes our understanding of control. Who is in charge? You, the thinking, feeling person, believe you direct your life. But at every moment, in every cell, a council of elders is meeting. A silent, ancient jury is weighing the evidence, and it is they who pass the final judgment. This power also shapes one of the most profound and mysterious experiences of our lives: aging. Why do we grow old? Why do our bodies, so resilient and masterful in their youth, begin to falter? Why does the flame burn less brightly? Part of the answer lies with them. The process of taming that chemical fire, of running the electron transport chain, is not perfectly clean. It is an industrial process, and like any factory, it produces waste. A small percentage of those high-energy electrons inevitably escape the chain. They leak out, and these stray electrons are dangerous. They collide with oxygen molecules and create highly reactive, destructive compounds known as free radicals or reactive oxygen species. These are like sparks flying from a forge. They are tiny molecular vandals. They attack the sensitive machinery of the mitochondrion itself. They damage the proteins of the transport chain. They damage the mitochondrial membranes. And most critically, they attack the mitochondrial DNA. Remember, mtDNA has very few of the sophisticated repair mechanisms that protect the DNA in your nucleus. It is vulnerable, exposed. Over the years, over a lifetime of burning fuel, this damage accumulates. The mtDNA acquires mutations. Typos creep into the blueprints for the energy engines. The result is a slow, creeping decline. The factories become less efficient. They produce less ADP. And, in a vicious cycle, a less efficient factory leaks even more electrons, creating even more free radicals, causing even more damage. This is the mitochondrial theory of aging. It is the slow, inexorable rusting of our inner engines. As our mitochondria falter, the consequences ripple outward through the entire system. Tissues that require enormous amounts of energy are the first to feel it. The brain, the heart, the muscles. The mind becomes less sharp. The heart weakens. The body grows frail. The vibrant energy of youth, which is really just the output of trillions of healthy, efficient mitochondria, gives way to the entropy of age. We are slowly, gently running out of power. So they're not just the givers of life and the arbiters of death. They're also the keepers of our time. Their health is, in a very real sense, the clock by which our lifespan is measured. Let us bring this out of the cellular and into the personal. Let us connect these microscopic events to the reality of your own felt experience. You are not a machine made of parts. You are a process, a dynamic, flowing river of energy. And that energy comes from your mitochondria. When you feel vibrant, focused, and alive, you are feeling the hum of trillions of mitochondria working in beautiful synchrony. The clarity of a sharp thought is not an abstract event. It is a physical one. It is the result of neurons in your brain being supplied with a sudden, rich surge of ADP, allowing them to fire and communicate flawlessly. That surge was manufactured on demand by the mitochondria packed densely inside those neurons. When you feel a wave of emotion, joy, love, fear, sadness, you are experiencing a complex cascade of neurotransmitters and hormones. The synthesis and release of every one of those molecules is an energy-intensive process. It requires ADP. Your emotional landscape, the very texture of your inner life, is sculpted and fueled by the fire of your ancient guests. Can you feel it now? The connection? Your state of being is a direct reflection of your inner ecology. This changes how we must think of ourselves. You are not a single noun. You are a verb. You are a collaboration. You are a conversation happening between your nuclear genome and your mitochondrial genome, a negotiation between the host and the tenant. So what then is the I? Where does identity reside in this sprawling, composite being? Is I the voice in your head? That voice is powered by mitochondrial energy. Is I the physical body you inhabit? That body is warmed and animated by them. Is I your genetic legacy? You have two of them telling two different stories, one of human ancestry and one of bacterial ancestry. The question, what am I, presupposes a singular answer. But the deeper we look, the more biology tells us that this is the wrong question. The reality is far more strange, far more beautiful. You are a walking coral reef, an ecosystem. You are a symphony, and the music that emerges is something more than any single instrument. The I is not a thing. It is the emergent property of the we. It is the harmony that arises from the pact. This forces us to redefine reality, or at least our perception of it. What does real even mean? What does self mean? The hard border between you and the outside world dissolves when you realize the outside world came inside you 2 billion years ago and became an integral part of your machinery. The line between self and other, between life and the machinery that supports it, is hopelessly, beautifully blurred. You are built from ghosts. You are animated by an ancient fire. You are a vessel for a story that is so much older and grander than your own. And this leads us to the most speculative, the most profound, and perhaps the most important question of all. What about consciousness? The feeling of being here now, the subjective, first-person awareness of your own existence. The light of consciousness that illuminates your thoughts and perceptions. This is the great mystery. Science can map the brain. It can trace the firing of neurons, but it cannot explain how these physical processes give rise to the non-physical experience of awareness. This is the hard problem. But perhaps we have been looking in the wrong place. Perhaps consciousness is not a product of the neurons alone. Consider this. The brain uses a staggering amount of energy. It accounts for about 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 20% of your oxygen and energy. It is the most mitochondrially dense organ in your body. Every synapse is packed with them, churning out ADP to fuel the ceaseless chatter of your neural networks. What if consciousness is not just enabled by this energy, but as an emergent property of the energetic field itself. What if the stable, coherent flame of awareness is a direct reflection of the quality and coherence of the energy being produced by your mitochondria? Think about states where consciousness is altered. In deep meditation, breath and metabolism slow down. The energetic state of the body changes, and perception changes with it. In states of illness or extreme fatigue, when mitochondrial function is impaired, we experience brain fog. Our thoughts become slow, cloudy. The light of awareness seems to dim. Could it be that the clarity and stability of the conscious mind is inextricably linked to the health and harmony of your mitochondrial network? That consciousness is a kind of stable resonance, a coherent wave that can only be sustained by a powerful, clean, and stable energy supply. This is a speculative leap, of course. It is moving from the shores of established science into the deep ocean of philosophy. But it feels true, does it not? It connects the highest, most mysterious aspect of our being, our conscious awareness, with the most ancient and fundamental process within us, the generation of life's energy. It suggests that to be fully conscious, to be fully present, is to have our inner fire burning cleanly and brightly. That the path to mental clarity might also be a path of metabolic health. That the spirit and the engine are not separate things, but two faces of the same reality. Your consciousness, then, might be the ultimate expression of this symbiotic pact, the most beautiful flower to grow from the soil of that 2-billion-year-old union, a phenomenon that could only arise once life had solved the energy crisis, once the guest had moved in and set up its furnace, allowing for the complexity and the extravagant energy expenditure that a thinking, feeling, self-aware mind requires. The light in your mind is borrowed from the fire of a bacterium. And so we return, after this long journey inward, to the beginning, to the simple act of breathing. We have asked the question, what are you? We have seen that there is no simple answer. You are a history, a living museum of evolution's greatest triumphs. You are a pact, a promise made between two desperate life forms in a primordial ocean, a promise that has been kept for 2 billion years. You are an ecosystem, a teeming city of trillions of lives, all working in concert to produce this singular experience you call I. You are a flame, a controlled chemical fire, and the quality of that fire determines the quality of your life, the length of your days, and perhaps even the brightness of your consciousness. The final metaphor, then, is one of deep connection. The mitochondria are not just your power plants. They're your ancestors. They are the keepers of a sacred trust, a thread of life that is passed, not through ideas or stories, but through the physical, living substance of the egg cell. They are the quiet, unassuming breath of deep time, humming away in the background of your every moment. You are not their master. You are not their host. You are their partner. You are their continuation. You are the latest, most complex expression of their ancient lineage. And they're the source of your vitality, the quiet engine of your being. So let this be the final thought as you settle into the quiet of this moment. The division between self and other is a fiction. The sense of being a singular entity is a convenient illusion. The truth is you are a magnificent, improbable, ancient collaboration. Listen. In the stillness, beneath the rhythm of your heart, beneath the flow of your thoughts, you might almost feel it. A faint, collective hum. The quiet, powerful vibration of a quadrillion lives, all burning in unison. They are breathing with you. They are living with you. In a very real sense, they are you. Take another breath. Feel the air come in, delivering the oxygen they crave. And as you breathe out, feel the warmth. It is the warmth of a 2-billion-year-old fire, a fire that they have tended inside your family line since the dawn of complex life. And now, it is your turn to be the keeper of the flame.